That's my dead grandmother! The scream pierced through the crowded ballroom like a knife through silk. Every head turned, every conversation stopped, and there, pressed against the glass window of Chicago's most exclusive venue, stood a 10-year-old girl pointing at a homeless woman outside. A woman who had supposedly died over a year ago. "Look, Dad! Look!" Emma shouted, her voice cracking with emotion. "That's Grandma Rose! She's alive!" Her father, David Mitchell, a man worth $40 million, went pale as a ghost. His expensive champagne glass slipped from his fingers and shattered on the marble floor. "That's impossible," he whispered, his legs suddenly weak. "Mom died last year. We had a funeral." But his daughter was already running. Her designer shoes clicked against the polished floor as she raced toward the exit, leaving behind a room full of shocked millionaires. "Emma, wait!" David's new wife, Christine, grabbed his arm with perfectly manicured nails. Her smile was tight, forced. "The child is confused. Let her go outside and see for herself that it's just some random beggar." But something in Christine's eyes told a different story. Something dark, something terrified. The evening had started like any other high society event in downtown Chicago. Crystal chandeliers hung from ceilings 3 stories high. Men in $1,000 suits talked about stocks and real estate. Women draped in jewelry gossiped behind champagne glasses. Emma sat at the main table between her father and stepmother, feeling like she was suffocating. "Daddy, why are we here?" she asked, tugging on his sleeve. "On the way over, I saw at least 20 people sleeping on the streets. It's freezing outside, and we're in here eating fancy food we don't even need." David patted her hand absent-mindedly, his attention already pulled away by a business associate. "Sweetheart, Dad needs to be here for work. We'll talk about this at home." "But Grandma Rose would never—" "Your grandmother isn't here anymore," Christine interrupted, her voice sweet as poisoned honey. "You need to accept that, and move on." Emma's eyes filled with tears, but she refused to cry. Not here. Not in front of these people who cared more about their bank accounts than human beings. "Look at them, Dad," she said louder now, her voice carrying across the table. "Everyone out there can see inside through these giant windows. They're watching us stuff our faces while they're starving. Don't you think that's wrong?" Several nearby guests turned to look. Christine's face flushed red with embarrassment. "Lower your voice," she hissed, gripping Emma's wrist under the table. "Hard enough to hurt." "You're making a scene. Let me go!" Emma yanked her arm away. "You're not my mother. You'll never be my mother." The words echoed through the ballroom. Conversations died. Hundreds of eyes turned toward their table. David's face went red. "Emma, that's enough." "No, Dad. Look outside!" "See that woman lying by the door? She's cold and hungry and nobody cares." Emma stood up, her chair scraping loudly. "Grandma Rose always said we should help people. She would hate this place. She would hate what you've become." Before anyone could stop her, Emma broke free and ran toward the glass doors leading outside. The night air hit Emma like a slap. After the warmth of the ballroom, the November wind cut right through her dress. But she didn't care. There, huddled against the building's wall, was an elderly woman wrapped in dirty blankets. Her face was hidden beneath a torn hood, but something about her made Emma's heart race. "Excuse me, ma'am?" Emma knelt beside her, ignoring the dirty pavement ruining her expensive dress. "Are you hungry? I can bring you food from inside. Just tell me what you need." The woman didn't respond. She just shivered, pulling the blankets tighter. Emma reached out gently, trying to help adjust the blanket when she saw it. A necklace. A simple necklace made from a clear stone wrapped in wire. Nothing expensive. Nothing fancy. But Emma had made it herself, over a year ago, using a pretty rock she'd found in their garden. Emma's heart stopped. "No," she whispered, her hands trembling as she reached for the necklace. It can't be. She had given that necklace to Grandma Rose on the last day she'd seen her, the day before she supposedly died. With shaking hands, Emma pulled back the woman's hood and screamed. Life had been different once, better, happier. In their mansion in Lake Forest, Emma had woken up every morning to the smell of fresh pancakes and her grandmother's laughter. Grandma Rose had lived with them since Emma's mother died 5 years ago, and she'd been the glue holding their broken family together. "Why so sad this morning?" Rose asked David one breakfast, watching her son push food around his plate without eating. David sighed, deep and heavy. "I woke up alone again, Mom. The bed feels so empty without her. I know everyone says I should move on, but I still miss Sarah every single day." Rose came around the table and hugged him, the way only a mother can. "Your wife was a wonderful woman, and it's okay to miss her. But son, you have to live again. For yourself. For Emma. Emma watched her father's eyes fill with tears. It broke her heart every time. I know what will cheer you up, Daddy. She jumped up and ran to the kitchen, returning with a golden pie that smelled like summer. Grandma Rose and I made your favorite. Pineapple pie. David's face finally cracked into a real smile. You two are my greatest blessings, he said, pulling them both into a tight hug. Later, when David left the room, Emma whispered to her grandmother, "We need to get Dad out of the house more. He'll never feel better locked up all the time." Rose nodded, a knowing smile on her face. "You're absolutely right, sweetheart." The next day, they convinced David to take a break from work and spend the afternoon at Lincoln Park. That's where everything changed. That's where he met her. Christine appeared like a vision, or maybe a nightmare dressed as a dream. David was sitting on a park bench in his usual business suit, watching Emma play on the swings, when a woman's voice made him turn. "Excuse me," she said, her smile bright and confident. "I noticed your watch from across the park. Clearly you're a man of taste, and I'm hoping you can help me." David blinked, surprised. The woman was stunning, auburn hair, emerald dress, and eyes that seemed to see right through him. "Help you with what?" he asked. "I'm new to Chicago," she explained, sitting down next to him without waiting for an invitation. "I'm looking for restaurant recommendations, but not the touristy places, somewhere special, somewhere someone like you would eat." David felt his face warm. Was she flirting with him? "Well, there's the Golden Oak downtown," he said, adjusting his tie nervously. "They have the best wine selection in the city. I always judge a restaurant by their wine." Christine's eyes lit up. "Wine, that's my passion too." What a coincidence. She paused, tilting her head. "Though it seems wrong for a woman to drink alone in a fancy restaurant." David caught the hint. If you'd like company, I'd be happy to join you." "That would be wonderful." She extended her hand. "I'm Christine, by the way. David, nice to meet you." That first dinner led to a second, then a third, then a fourth. Within weeks, David was a different man. Smiling, laughing, dressing up again. He seemed alive for the first time in years. But Grandma Rose and Emma watched this transformation with growing dread. "Something's wrong about her," Emma told her grandmother one night. "She's too perfect, too interested in Daddy. I don't trust her." Rose nodded slowly. "I agree, sweetheart. But your father is a grown man. We have to let him make his own choices, and be there to catch him if he falls." They didn't have to wait long. 2 months after meeting Christine, David came home with an announcement that made their blood run cold. "I'm getting married," he declared, beaming with joy. "Christine is the one. I know it seems fast, but when you know, you know." Rose nearly dropped the knife she was holding. "Married? Son, you barely know this woman." "It's only been a few months. Please, slow down and think about this." Emma ran to her father, tears streaming down her face. "Daddy, no. She's not good for you. I can feel it. Please don't marry her." But David was blind to their concerns. Blind to everything except Christine's smile and sweet words. "You're both worrying for nothing," he said firmly. "Christine loves me. She makes me happy. The wedding is in 2 weeks. The very next day, he brought her home with 6 suitcases and a sparkling engagement ring. Christine moved in, and the nightmare began. The morning after Christine moved in, everything changed. "Good morning, household." Christine's voice rang through the mansion like a judge announcing sentences. "Tell the new driver to come to my office. I'll give him his uniform personally." Rose, who had been the lady of the house for 30 years, looked up sharply. "Excuse me? What new driver?" Christine smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Oh, didn't David tell you? I fired Walter yesterday. Poor man's too old to drive safely. His eyes are going bad. You fired Walter?" Rose stood up, her voice shaking with anger. "He's been with this family for 25 years. He drove my husband to his last doctor's appointment before he died. He taught David how to drive." "You have no right." "I have every right," Christine interrupted coldly. "I'm David's fiancée, soon to be his wife. This is my home now too, and I'm making improvements." David rushed in, trying to keep the peace. "Mom, please." Christine was just trying to help. "Walter will be fine. We're giving him a generous retirement package." "This isn't about money." Rose's voice broke. "It's about loyalty, about family, about what's right." But David wouldn't listen. He was too infatuated, too blind, too desperate to believe he'd found love again. Over the next few weeks, Christine methodically destroyed everything that made the Mitchell house a home. She removed family photos and replaced them with modern art. She threw out Rose's favorite furniture and bought new pieces that looked expensive but felt cold. She fired the cook who'd worked for them for 15 years, then the housekeeper, then the gardener. In their places, she hired young people who owed her loyalty. And only her. The worst part? She did most of it when Rose wasn't around to object, and when Rose tried to complain to David, Christine had already poisoned his mind with excuses. "Your mother is having trouble accepting change," Christine would whisper to David late at night. "It's natural at her age. We just need to be patient with her." Emma watched it all happen with growing horror. She tried to tell her father, but he never listened. He was too busy, too distracted, too convinced that Christine was perfect. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon. David was at work. Emma was at school. Rose was alone in the mansion, making her daily cup of tea in the kitchen. That's when she heard voices from the back garden. Strange voices. Angry voices. Rose moved to the window and peeked through the curtains. What she saw made her teacup slip from her hands and shatter on the floor. There was Christine, wrapped in the arms of a man. But not just any man. Marcus, the new driver Christine had hired to replace Walter. They were kissing. "Relax, baby," Christine purred, running her fingers through Marcus's hair. "David's too stupid to suspect anything. He thinks I actually love him," Marcus laughed. "How much longer do we have to keep up this act?" "Not long," Christine assured him. "Once we're officially married, I'll have access to everything. His money, his house, his entire fortune. Then we can get rid of him and live like royalty." Rose's hand flew to her mouth, horror washing over her like ice water. She'd suspected Christine was bad news, but this was pure evil. "We just have to be careful," Christine continued. "That old woman, Rose, she's suspicious. I can see it in her eyes. She might try to tell David the truth." "So what do we do about her?" Marcus asked. Christine's smile turned cruel. "Don't worry. I have a plan for dear mother-in-law. She won't be a problem much longer." Rose backed away from the window, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might explode. She had to tell David, had to warn him, had to stop this before, but how? David was so in love, so convinced Christine was his salvation. If Rose just told him what she saw, would he even believe her? Or would he think his elderly mother was confused, jealous, trying to ruin his happiness? Rose made a decision. She would confront Christine herself. Woman to woman, force her to leave before the wedding, protect her son without breaking his heart. It was the biggest mistake of her life. Rose waited until Christine returned to the house that evening. David was still at the office. Emma was doing homework upstairs. The mansion was quiet except for the sound of Rose's footsteps as she walked into the living room where Christine was lounging on the sofa. "I know everything," Rose said, her voice steady despite her shaking hands. "I saw you with Marcus. I heard what you said. You don't love my son. You're just using him for his money." Christine looked up from her magazine, completely calm. "Is that so?" "Yes," Rose continued, gaining confidence. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to pack your bags tonight and leave. Tell David whatever excuse you want, that you're not ready, that you made a mistake. I don't care, but you will leave this house and never come back." For a moment, there was silence. Then Christine started laughing, not nervously, not anxiously, but with genuine amusement, as if Rose had just told the funniest joke in the world. "Oh, you sweet, naive old woman," Christine said, standing up slowly. "You really think I'm just going to leave? After all the work I've put into this? If you don't leave, I'll tell David everything," Rose threatened. Christine's smile widened. "No, you won't." "Yes, But Rose never finished her sentence. At Christine's signal, 2 large men emerged from the hallway. Men Christine had hired as security staff the week before. They grabbed Rose's arms before she could scream. "What are you doing?" "Let me go!" Rose struggled, but they were too strong. Christine walked over slowly, savoring every moment. "Did you really think I didn't see this coming? I've been planning for this possibility since the day I moved in." She pulled out a small glass bottle filled with clear liquid. "Do you know what this is, Rose?" Christine held it up to the light. "It's a special drug. Very expensive. Very effective. It won't kill you. Oh no, that would be too suspicious. But it will destroy your memory. Bit by bit, day by day, until you can't remember your own name." Rose's eyes widened with horror. "You're insane!" "I'm practical," Christine corrected. "And you're in my way." She nodded to the men. One of them pinched Rose's nose shut, while the other forced her mouth open. Christine poured the bitter liquid down her throat. Rose tried to spit it out, tried to fight, but it was too late. Within seconds, her vision started to blur. Her legs gave out. The world spun and faded to black. When she woke up, she was lying at the bottom of the main staircase. "Mom! Mom!" David's voice sounded far away, echoing like he was in a tunnel. "What happened? Are you okay?" Rose opened her eyes to see her son's face hovering above her, filled with worry. Behind him stood Christine, her expression perfectly crafted to show concern. I don't know, Rose mumbled, her mind foggy and confused. I was walking, and then everything went dark. She must have fallen down the stairs, Christine suggested softly. Oh, David, maybe she hit her head. We should call a doctor. Emma came running down the stairs, her small face pale with fear. Grandma! Are you hurt? David helped his mother sit up. Can you tell me what day it is, Mom? Can you remember? Rose tried to think, but her mind felt like it was moving through thick mud. It's Tuesday? No, wait. Wednesday? I'm not sure. David and Emma exchanged worried looks. Over the next few days, Rose's condition worsened. She would forget conversations moments after having them. She'd wander into rooms and forget why she went there. She'd look at familiar objects, photos, books, even people, and not recognize them. David took her to the best doctors in Chicago. They ran tests, did brain scans, checked for everything from Alzheimer's to brain tumors. We can't find anything wrong, the doctors said, puzzled. Her scans are normal. There's no medical explanation for this memory loss. What they didn't know was that Christine had paid them off. Every single doctor paid them to lie, to hide the truth, to let her continue poisoning Rose day after day. Because that's exactly what she did. Every morning, Christine would bring Rose her medicine, a glass of water with more of that poison dissolved inside. Time for your pills. Mother Rose, she'd say with a false smile, watching to make sure every drop went down. Day by day, week by week, Rose faded away. The strong, sharp woman who had raised David and helped raise Emma became a hollow shell. She stopped talking, stopped responding, stopped being there, even though her body remained. Emma noticed everything. She saw how Grandma Rose only got worse after Christine gave her those pills. She saw the fear in her grandmother's eyes whenever Christine entered the room. One afternoon, Emma made something special. A necklace made from a pretty clear stone she'd found in their garden. She wrapped it carefully in wire and brought it to her grandmother's room. Grandma, Emma whispered, fastening it around Rose's neck. I know you're still in there somewhere. This necklace is so you'll remember me, and so I'll always recognize you. No matter what. Rose's empty eyes flickered for just a second. Her hand moved slightly, touching Emma's hair. Then the emptiness returned. 3 months later, Christine got what she wanted. A wedding. The ceremony took place at an old church in Oak Park, decorated with white roses and golden ribbons. 200 guests filled the pews, all of Chicago's elite society. David stood at the altar in his best suit, tears in his eyes. Not tears of joy, but of complicated emotion. His mother sat in the front row in a wheelchair, staring at nothing. The priest's voice echoed through the church. Christine Bradley, do you take David Mitchell to be your lawfully wedded husband? To have and to hold, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, as long as you both shall live. Christine smiled, her fingers crossed behind her bouquet. I do. And David Mitchell, do you take Christine Bradley to be your lawfully wedded wife? To have and to hold, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, as long as you both shall live? At that exact moment, a sound echoed through the church. No, no, no. Everyone turned. Rose was moving in her wheelchair, her mouth working to form words. Her eyes, usually empty, now burned with desperate intensity. No, don't, the guests murmured in confusion. David took a step toward his mother, but Marcus, dressed as a server, quickly appeared with a glass of water. Time for her medication, he said smoothly. She gets confused without it. Before anyone could object, he'd forced the liquid down Rose's throat. Within seconds, she slumped back in the wheelchair, silent once more. The moment passed. The priest cleared his throat. David, your answer? David looked at his mother's still form, then at Christine's expectant face. His heart told him something was wrong, but his mind couldn't make sense of it. I do. The church erupted in applause. Rice was thrown. The choir sang. Christine had won, except not quite. The religious ceremony was done, but they still needed to sign the legal papers to make the marriage official. That would happen at the reception back at the Mitchell mansion. At the party, surrounded by champagne and celebration, the justice of the peace laid out the marriage license on a table. Just need your signatures here, he said, pointing. Christine signed immediately, her handwriting quick and confident. Then she handed the pen to David with a triumphant smile. David picked up the pen, his hand poised over the paper. And that's when Rose screamed. No.
Don't! Stop!
The old woman was on her feet, somehow impossibly on her feet, pointing at Christine with a shaking finger. Her eyes were clear for the first time in months. That woman is evil. She poisoned me. She and her lover planned it all. David, don't sign that paper. The ballroom fell silent. Every eye turned to stare. Christine's face went white. Marcus, standing by the door, tensed like a cornered animal. Mom, what are you saying? David dropped the pen and ran to his mother. You're confused. You're not well. Let's get you to the hospital. But Rose grabbed his shirt with surprising strength. I'm telling you the truth. She doesn't love you. She's after your money. She and Marcus, the driver, they're together. I saw them. That's why she drugged me, to keep me quiet. Christine laughed, but it sounded forced. This is ridiculous. The poor woman is having hallucinations. David, please, let's get her the help she needs. But for the first time, David hesitated. He looked at his mother's eyes, truly looked, and saw clarity there. Desperation. Truth. Everyone out, he said quietly. The party's over. Mom needs to go to the hospital, now. That night, while Rose was being examined at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, Christine paced their bedroom like a caged tiger. This is a disaster, she hissed at Marcus over the phone. The old bat woke up. She's telling him everything. So what do we do? Marcus asked from the other end. We finish what we started, Christine said coldly. Tomorrow morning, I'll take David and the brat out for a walk. You take Rose from the hospital, drive her somewhere remote, and make sure she never wakes up again. The next morning, Christine put on her sweetest face. Darling, she said to David over breakfast, I think we all need some fresh air. Why don't we take a walk through the garden? Give Rose time to rest at the hospital. David, exhausted and confused, agreed. He took Emma's hand, and they headed outside. The moment they were gone, Marcus got the call. He drove to Northwestern Memorial, flashed a fake ID, and told the nurses he was there to transfer Rose to a specialist facility. The paperwork was forged, but perfect. Within 20 minutes, he had the unconscious old woman in the back of a black SUV. He drove north for 2 hours, deep into rural Wisconsin. Finally, he found what he was looking for, a deserted cliff overlooking a quarry. Marcus parked the car and pulled Rose's body out. She was still unconscious, still wearing the simple stone necklace Emma had made. Nothing personal, old lady, he muttered, but you're worth more to us dead than alive. He carried her to the edge of the cliff, and without hesitation, threw her over. Rose's body tumbled through the air and crashed into the rocks below. Marcus didn't even wait to see where she landed. He got back in the car and drove away, already planning what to tell Christine. But he made one fatal mistake. He assumed Rose was dead. She wasn't. The fall should have killed her. The rocks should have crushed her bones. The cold November night should have finished what the fall didn't. But Rose Mitchell was tougher than anyone knew. She woke up hours later in darkness, every part of her body screaming with pain. She couldn't remember how she got there, couldn't remember falling, could barely remember her own name. The drugs were still in her system, scrambling her thoughts. But somewhere deep inside, a single feeling remained. She had to survive. She had a son, a granddaughter. They needed her. Rose crawled away from the quarry on broken legs, leaving a trail of blood behind her. She didn't know where she was going, didn't have a plan, just moved forward because stopping meant dying. By dawn, she'd reached a highway. A truck driver found her lying in a ditch and called an ambulance. But when the paramedics arrived, Rose panicked. Some animal instinct told her hospitals were dangerous. She ran before they could catch her. For weeks, she wandered. The drugs had destroyed most of her memory, but a few fragments remained. A boy's face. Her son. A little girl's laugh. Her granddaughter. A beautiful house. Her home. She ended up in Chicago, though she didn't remember it was her city. She slept in alleys, ate from garbage cans, wore clothes she found in dumpsters. Other homeless people shared food with her. They became her new family, though she couldn't explain why she was there or who she'd been before. The only thing she kept was the necklace. She didn't remember where it came from, but something told her it was important, so she wore it always, hidden under her dirty clothes. Back at the Mitchell mansion, David was going insane. His mother had disappeared from the hospital, just vanished. No one could explain how or why. Security cameras showed Marcus taking her, but he claimed she'd been transferred to another facility, a lie that fell apart within hours. David hired private investigators. He printed thousands of flyers with Rose's photo. He offered a $50,000 reward for information. He drove through every neighborhood in Chicago, showing her picture to anyone who would look. Have you seen this woman? Please, she's my mother. She's sick and needs help, but no one had. Or if they had, they didn't remember. The homeless are invisible in a city like Chicago. After 11 months of searching, the police finally closed the case. "We're sorry, Mr. Mitchell," the detective said gently, "but the evidence suggests your mother likely passed away shortly after she was taken. We found no trace of her, no activity on her credit cards, no hospital visits, no body, but it's been almost a year." David broke down crying. Emma, now 11 years old, held her father's hand and wept with him. 2 weeks later, the state officially declared Rose Mitchell dead. Christine smiled. With Rose gone and David's spirit broken, Christine thought she finally had everything under control. But there was still one obstacle. Emma. The girl refused to call Christine Mom. She questioned everything. She watched Christine with suspicious eyes. And worst of all, she kept mentioning her grandmother. "I still feel like Grandma's alive, Dad," Emma said one night. "I know it sounds crazy, but I feel it in my heart." Christine couldn't let this continue, couldn't risk Emma discovering the truth or convincing David to keep investigating. So she came up with a new plan, a plan to remove Emma from the picture permanently. "That charity gala tomorrow night," Christine mentioned casually over dinner. "We should all go as a family. It would be good for David's image. And maybe Emma will finally see the importance of these events." David nodded, though he had no enthusiasm for parties anymore. The gala was at the Palmer House Hotel downtown, a massive glass building where Chicago's wealthiest gathered to pat themselves on the back for donating pocket change to charity. Emma hated it on sight. "Dad," she whispered, tugging his sleeve as they walked through the lobby. "Did you see all those people outside? They're freezing. They're hungry. Why are we going to a party when we could actually help them?" David sighed. "Honey, we've been through this. Dad needs to attend these events for business. We'll help later, I promise." Inside the ballroom, the contrast was obscene. Crystal chandeliers worth more than most people's houses. Tables piled with food that would be thrown away at the end of the night. Rich people in designer clothes laughing about their stock portfolios. Emma felt sick. She tried to get her father's attention, tried to make him see how wrong this all was. But David was distracted, talking to business partners, his mind still clouded with grief over his mother. Christine watched the girl with cold calculation. She'd already sent Marcus ahead with the household staff. Her hired thugs disguised as servants. They had their orders. Find Emma when she inevitably ran outside to help the homeless. Grab her, and make sure she disappeared just like Grandma Rose. Emma pulled on her father's sleeve again. "Dad, please listen." "Not now, sweetheart," David said, not even looking at her. That's when Emma snapped. She grabbed a glass of red wine from the table and accidentally spilled it all over David's business partner, a man in a $5,000 suit. The ballroom went silent. "Emma!" David shouted, mortified. But Emma didn't care about the scandal. She finally had his attention. "Dad, you need to come outside with me right now," she said urgently. "There's a woman out there. She's wearing the necklace I made for Grandma Rose, the one I gave her before she died." David's face went pale. "Emma, that's impossible. Please!" Emma was crying now. "Just come look. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize to everyone. But if I'm right," she didn't finish. She just ran toward the exit. David hesitated only a second before following his daughter. Christine rushing behind them, her heart pounding with panic. Outside the Palmer house, the November wind cut like knives. Emma ran past the valets and limos until she reached a dark corner where a homeless woman sat huddled against the building. "Ma'am?" Emma knelt down, her voice gentle despite her racing heart. "Ma'am, I'm sorry to bother you, but can I see your necklace?" The woman didn't respond. Her face was hidden by a dirty hood. David arrived, breathing hard, Christine right behind him. "Emma, sweetheart, I don't think—" But Emma had already pulled back the woman's hood, and there she was. Grandma Rose. Thinner, dirtier, more damaged than before, but alive. Unmistakably alive. "Mom?" David's voice cracked. He fell to his knees beside her. "Oh my God, Mom!" Rose's eyes were vacant, empty. The drugs and trauma had stolen her mind again. But she was breathing. She was real. David turned to Christine, his face transformed with rage. "You told me they transferred her to another facility. You said—" "I didn't know." Christine backed away, her voice high and panicked. "I had no idea she was alive. Maybe Marcus made a mistake." "Marcus?" David stood up slowly. "Why would Marcus have anything to do with this?" Christine realized her error too late. At that moment, Rose's hand moved. She touched Emma's face with trembling fingers, and something deep inside her shattered brain seemed to wake up. Ma?" she whispered. "Yes." Emma grabbed her grandmother's hand. "It's me, Grandma! I found you!" And then Rose's eyes shifted to Christine. The moment their eyes met, it was like a dam breaking. Every suppressed memory came flooding back. The drugging, the conversation in the garden, Marcus's face as he pushed her off the cliff. You! Rose's voice was hoarse but powerful. It was you! You and Marcus. Christine tried to run, but David grabbed her arm. What is she talking about? She's confused, sick. I don't know what I remember everything now. Rose's voice grew stronger with each word. You poisoned me to keep me quiet about your affair with Marcus. When that wasn't enough, you had him throw me off a cliff to kill me. You're a monster! The crowd that had gathered around them gasped. Christine's face went from pale to red to purple with rage. Fine, she screamed, all pretense gone. Fine, yes, it was me. You stupid old woman wouldn't stay quiet. You were going to ruin everything. And I would have gotten away with it if you just died like you were supposed to. She ripped off her expensive bracelet and threw it at David's feet. I never loved you. I never loved any of this. I just wanted your money, you pathetic fool. She turned and ran toward the parking lot where Marcus was waiting in the car, engine already running. David stood frozen, his world crumbling around him. Stop them, Emma shouted. The police who had been working security at the gala were already moving. Officers surrounded the car, guns drawn. Out of the vehicle. Hands up! But Marcus wasn't going to jail. He'd rather die than spend his life behind bars. Get in. He screamed at Christine. She threw herself into the passenger seat, and the car's tires screamed against the pavement as Marcus floored the accelerator. You'll never catch us, pigs. Christine shrieked out the window, her face twisted with hatred. The chase was on. Police sirens wailed through downtown Chicago as Marcus weaved through traffic at 90 miles per hour. He ran red lights, drove on sidewalks, nearly crashed into a city bus. Faster, Christine urged him. Lose them! Marcus's eyes were wild, his hands gripping the wheel so tight his knuckles turned white. I know a shortcut through the industrial district. We can lose them there. He took a sharp turn that made the car's tires smoke. They were heading north now, away from the city lights, toward the abandoned warehouses near the lake. This is it, baby, Christine said, her voice almost dreamy despite the danger. Once we lose them, we'll head to Canada. Start over. We'll still be together. Always together, Marcus agreed, taking his eyes off the road for just 1 second to look at her. That 1 second was all it took. He didn't see the sharp curve ahead, didn't see the concrete barrier. By the time he looked back at the road, it was too late. Marcus yanked the wheel hard to the left, but the car was going too fast. It spun out of control, crashed through the barrier, and flew off the edge of an old loading dock. The car hung in the air for what seemed like an eternity. Then it dropped 30 feet straight down into an abandoned quarry filled with water and rusted machinery. The impact was tremendous. Metal screamed. Glass shattered. The car flipped twice before hitting the water and immediately beginning to sink. The police cars screeched to a stop at the edge of the dock. Officers jumped out, radios crackling, but there was nothing they could do. The car disappeared beneath the black water. Bubbles rose to the surface. Then nothing. Silence. Christine and Marcus were gone. The morning sun streamed through the windows of the Mitchell mansion in Lake Forest. But this time the house felt different. It felt alive again. In the kitchen, the smell of fresh pancakes filled the air. Grandma Rose stood at the stove, humming softly as she flipped them onto a plate. Her hair was silver now. She'd stopped dyeing it, but her eyes were clear and bright. Breakfast is ready, she called out. David came down the stairs, his face relaxed in a way it hadn't been for years. Behind him was Emma, now 12 years old and taller, laughing at something on her phone. Something smells amazing, David said, kissing his mother's cheek. Only the best for my family, Rose replied with a warm smile. They sat together at the same table where, 2 years ago, everything had started to fall apart. But now it was whole again. How did you sleep, Mom? David asked, pouring orange juice. Like a baby, Rose said. No nightmares. Dr. Peterson says my brain has healed remarkably well. Most of the drug damage has reversed itself. It had taken months of treatment, therapy, and medication, but Rose had recovered. The poison Christine had given her was gradually filtered from her system. Her memories came back piece by piece. The trauma faded slowly but surely. You're the strongest person I know, David said, his voice thick with emotion. Rose reached across the table and squeezed his hand. I had something to fight for. You and Emma. That's what kept me alive. Emma looked up from her phone. Speaking of which, Dad, don't forget we have the ribbon-cutting ceremony today. How could I forget? David grinned. It's only the most important day of the year. 6 months after Christine's death, David had made a decision. He'd sold half his business holdings and used the money to create something that actually mattered, the Rose Mitchell Foundation. It wasn't just another charity where rich people threw money at problems and felt good about themselves. It was real, tangible, effective. They'd opened 3 shelters across Chicago, providing not just beds and meals, but job training, mental health services, and medical care. They'd hired social workers to help people get back on their feet. They'd created partnerships with local businesses to guarantee job interviews for anyone who completed their programs. And today, they were opening the 4th location, the biggest one yet, right in downtown Chicago, just 2 blocks from where Emma had found her grandmother a year ago. "I'm so proud of you, Dad," Emma said. "This is what Grandma would have wanted. What Mom would have wanted too." David's eyes misted over. He rarely talked about Sarah anymore, not because he'd forgotten her, but because the grief no longer consumed him. "Your mother would have loved this," he agreed. "She always said our money was meaningless unless we used it to help others." She was a wise woman, Rose added quietly, and she'd be so proud of the young lady Emma's becoming. Emma blushed. "I just wish I could do more." "You're 12, David laughed. "You've got plenty of time to change the world." They finished breakfast and got ready for the ceremony. But as David was putting on his tie, the doorbell rang. Emma ran to answer it. A moment later, she called out, "Dad, there's someone here to see you." David came downstairs to find a woman in her 30s standing in the foyer, holding a young boy's hand. She looked nervous, her clothes simple but clean. "Mr. Mitchell?" she said hesitantly. "I'm sorry to bother you at home, but I had to come in person to say thank you." "Thank me? For what?" David asked, confused. The woman's eyes filled with tears. "6 months ago, I was living in my car with my son. We'd lost everything, my job, our apartment, my hope. I was ready to give up." She took a shaky breath. "Then we came to your shelter. You gave us a place to sleep, food. You helped me get clean clothes for job interviews. One of your counselors helped me with my resume." She was crying now, but smiling through the tears. "Last week, I got hired as an assistant manager at a hotel downtown. We moved into our own apartment. My son starts at a good school next month. You gave us our lives back." David felt his throat tighten. "I'm so glad we could help." "It's more than help," the woman insisted. "You saw us as human beings when everyone else looked right through us. You treated us with dignity. That matters more than you'll ever know." After she left, David stood in the doorway for a long moment, just thinking. Emma came up beside him. "See, Dad? This is what matters. Not fancy parties or business deals. Real people. Real lives." David pulled his daughter into a hug. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from the best," Emma said, smiling at her grandmother who had joined them. Later that afternoon, they stood on a platform in front of the new shelter. A crowd of several hundred people had gathered, some curious locals, some reporters, but mostly people who had been helped by the foundation. David stepped up to the microphone, his heart full. "A year ago," he began, his voice steady. "I almost lost everything that mattered. I was so focused on making money, on maintaining appearances, on impressing people who didn't care about me, that I nearly lost my family." He looked at Rose and Emma standing beside him. "My mother was taken from me because someone valued money more than human life. My daughter was almost killed for the same reason. And I allowed it to happen because I was blind." The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. "But I've learned something important. Wealth means nothing if you don't use it to make the world better. Success means nothing if you're not helping others succeed. And family, real family built on love and trust, that's the only thing worth fighting for." He paused, emotion making his voice crack. "This shelter is dedicated to my mother, Rose Mitchell, who survived the impossible because she had something to live for. And it's dedicated to every person out there who's been ignored, forgotten, or thrown away by society. You matter. You're seen. And we're here to help." The crowd erupted in applause. As they cut the ribbon and opened the doors, David felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Real, genuine peace. The changes kept coming, slowly but surely. Walter, the old driver Christine had fired, came back to work for the family. He cried when David personally apologized and offered him his job back. All the old staff returned, the cook, the housekeeper, the gardener. The mansion became a home again, filled with familiar faces and warm laughter. David started dating again, but this time he was careful. He took it slow. He let Emma and Rose meet anyone he was interested in before things got serious. And he paid attention to their instincts. "What do you think of her?" he asked Emma after introducing her to a woman named Jennifer, a teacher he'd met while volunteering at the shelter. Emma smiled. "I like her, Dad. She's real." And she didn't pretend to like me just to impress you. She actually asked about my opinions on books and school and stuff, Rose agreed. She has kind eyes. And she volunteers with homeless youth on weekends. That tells me what kind of person she is. David and Jennifer took things slow, but a year later, they were engaged. This time, everyone was happy about it, because this time, it was real. The foundation continued to grow. They opened shelters in 3 more cities. They started a program to help homeless veterans. They partnered with hospitals to provide free health care to anyone who needed it. Emma became the youngest board member of the foundation at age 14. She used social media to raise awareness and organize volunteer events. She gave speeches at schools about empathy and kindness. My grandmother survived being poisoned and thrown off a cliff, she would tell audiences. She lived on the streets for almost a year, but she never gave up. And now she's helping other people who are going through what she went through. If she can do that, what's your excuse for not helping? Her speeches went viral. News stations interviewed her. She became known as the girl who saved her grandmother. But Emma didn't care about fame. She cared about results. And the results spoke for themselves. Over 2,000 people housed. Over 1,500 jobs secured. Countless families reunited. 3 years after the night Emma found her grandmother outside the Palmer House Hotel, the entire Mitchell family gathered for a special dinner. It wasn't a fancy event. No crystal chandeliers or champagne. Just a simple meal in their home, cooked by Rose herself. Present were David and his new wife Jennifer. Kind, genuine, beloved by both Rose and Emma. Walter, the driver, who'd become like family. Some of the staff who'd worked with them for decades. And a few special guests, people who'd been helped by the foundation and had since gotten back on their feet. One of those guests was a man named Thomas. 2 years ago, he'd been sleeping under a bridge. Addicted to drugs, having lost everything after a workplace injury left him unemployed and in chronic pain. Now, he was 2 years sober, working as a counselor at one of the shelters, helping others like himself. "I want to make a toast," Thomas said, standing up with a glass of water. "To Rose Mitchell, who proved that no matter how far you fall, you can climb back up. To Emma Mitchell, who never stopped believing in people others had given up on. And to David Mitchell, who learned that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in lives changed." Everyone raised their glasses. "To family," Rose added softly. "The kind you're born into and the kind you choose." "To family," they echoed. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Emma found herself alone with her grandmother on the back porch, watching the sunset over Lake Michigan. "Grandma," Emma said quietly, "do you ever think about Christine? About what she did to you?" Rose was quiet for a long moment. "Sometimes," she admitted, "but not with anger anymore. Mostly I feel sad for her." "Sad? She tried to kill you." "I know," Rose said, "but she was so consumed by greed and fear that she destroyed herself. She could have had real love, a real family, if she'd just opened her heart. Instead, she chose money and ended up with nothing." Emma thought about that. "I guess you're right. The best revenge," Rose continued, "is living well, being happy, helping others. Christine wanted to destroy our family, but instead, she made us stronger." Emma leaned her head on her grandmother's shoulder. "I'm glad you survived, Grandma. So am I, sweetheart." "So am I." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the colors paint the sky, gold and pink and purple, like a promise that tomorrow would come, and it would be beautiful. Inside the house, they could hear laughter. David and Jennifer were doing dishes together, splashing each other with soap bubbles like teenagers. Walter was telling old stories that made everyone laugh. The cook was already planning tomorrow's menu. Life wasn't perfect. They still had challenges. The foundation faced funding issues sometimes. Emma still had nightmares occasionally about losing her grandmother. David still felt guilty about being so blind to Christine's true nature. But they had each other. They had purpose. They had love. And in the end, that was everything. Emma stood at the podium in front of 500 people, no longer a child, but a young woman of 17. She was giving the keynote speech at the National Homeless Coalition Conference. "People ask me why I care so much about this issue," she said, her voice strong and clear. "Why I spend my weekends at shelters instead of shopping malls. Why I used my college fund to expand our programs instead of going to an expensive private school." She paused, looking out at the audience. "The answer is simple. I know what it's like to watch someone you love disappear. I know what it's like to search for them and be told they're probably dead. I know what it's like to find them again, broken and lost, after everyone had given up hope." In the front row, Rose sat with tears streaming down her face. Next to her, David held her hand. My grandmother survived the impossible, Emma continued, but thousands of others don't. Every year, people die on our streets. Not because they deserve it, not because they didn't try hard enough, but because we as a society decided they weren't worth saving. Her voice grew passionate. Well, I'm here to tell you they are worth saving. Every single one. Because that homeless person you walk past on your way to Starbucks, that's someone's mother, someone's father, someone's grandmother. They had dreams once. They had families. They had lives. The audience was silent, captivated. My family was destroyed by greed and cruelty, but we rebuilt it with love and compassion. And that's what I'm asking all of you to do. Rebuild our society with compassion. See the homeless not as problems to be solved, but as human beings to be valued. She finished her speech to a standing ovation. That night, as the family drove home together, David, Jennifer, Rose, and Emma, they passed a homeless man on the corner holding a cardboard sign. "Stop the car," Emma said immediately. David pulled over. Emma got out and approached the man, not with pity, but with respect. "Excuse me, sir? Are you hungry? Cold? Do you need help?" The man looked up, surprised anyone had noticed him. I could use a hot meal." "There's a shelter 2 blocks from here," Emma said, handing him a card. "The Rose Mitchell Foundation. Tell them Emma sent you. They'll help you. No judgment, no strings attached. Just help." The man's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for seeing me." Emma smiled. "You were always there. People just forgot to look." As they drove away, Rose reached forward from the back seat and squeezed Emma's shoulder. "Your mother would be so proud of you." Emma turned and squeezed back. "I learned from the best, Grandma." And in that moment, despite everything they'd been through, the betrayal, the poisoning, the attempted murder, the loss and fear and pain, they were happy. Because they had found what Christine never understood. Real wealth isn't in bank accounts or mansions or fancy cars. Real wealth is in the people you love and the lives you touch. Real wealth is in surviving the impossible and using that strength to help others survive too. Real wealth is in looking at someone everyone else has forgotten and saying, "I see you. You matter. Let me help." The Mitchell family had learned that lesson the hard way, but they had learned it, and they would spend the rest of their lives teaching it to others. Comment family if you made it to the end of this story, and I'll mark your comment with a heart. And if you loved Emma's courage and Rose's strength, I have another incredible story that will move you even more. Thank you for reading, and see you in the next story.